plan.
There are so many issues that make it almost impossible to go back in a truly safe way to the classroom.
I want to be clear that we're worried, but we're also really, really angry.
Parents and educators hold a show and tell at Queen's Park today, highlighting problems with what they call Ford's COVID classroom. The groups behind the demonstration are hoping it will convince Doug Ford's government to enhance its return to the classroom plan. Chris Glover is live for us at a school on Branch Street, just off Adelaide near Spadina. And Chris, these demonstrators worry elementary class sizes will be too big for physical distancing.
Too many kids too close together, and in old buildings just like this one, probably with poor ventilation in many cases, especially here in Toronto's downtown. All of this adding together, equaling a dangerous equation, these families say, and that is why they brought this show and tell right to the Premier.
Fund safe schools! Fund safe schools!
A mock classroom outside Queen's Park, cordoned off with caution tape.
So you can see I'm going to hopefully not trip.
Faces to represent 30 kids in a classroom.
Parents told us that they were too afraid to have their children participate in a demonstration like this, where risk is significantly mitigated in comparison to the conditions that they will be returning to in just 3 weeks.
Many Ontario schools are 100-year-old buildings with no ventilation and windows that don't open.
I think that that's crazy because we're going to be in there all day, every day for a year.
Except inside.
Except inside, so it's even more dangerous.
David Stalker brought 2 of his kids to visualize it. The 25-year teacher says his classroom tables seat 6 kids each.
They better be giving us something like saws, because we don't work with the media image of single table, single desk.
We will always wish that there had been a better conversation about illness prevention, even a year before it impacted our home.
Mississauga mom Jill Promoli lost one of her healthy twin boys 4 years ago to the flu. She won't stop fighting until Ontario class sizes are brought way down.
We'd do anything to get him back, and we can't. So now we're doing anything that we can to help prevent others from being in our situation. And it's the best we can do for him now.
The government has committed $80 million to hire teachers and custodians to keep class sizes smaller and cleaner, but the NDP says it's nowhere near enough.
This plan, this sham back here that Doug Ford is signing up our families for, this is a recipe for disaster.
The government would tell you that it only has so much money to go around, and it's got a ballooning deficit on top of that. What would you say to their argument that there might not be enough money to do the sorts of changes that you're calling for?
I would say that children's lives are priceless.
We have to be flexible when it comes.
While defending the plan today, the Premier teased an upcoming announcement.
It's going to be a positive announcement. It's going to be great for the teachers and the students.
But no further details from the Premier on that plan. He did, though, signal to those families not to get their hopes up, saying that there would be no changes with his plan, just what he called improvements. Dwight?
Thank you, Chris. When the province announced their back-to-school plan on July 30th, it included the hiring of over 1,000 new staff, including more teachers, custodians, and nurses. Let's go to Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, who is looking into that part of the story for us. And Deanna, we're just a few weeks out from the first day of school, so how is this hiring going?
Well, I think, Dwight, in short, not as quickly as many school boards and certainly parents and other people would like it to go. I think for any one of us who has ever applied for a job and been interviewed for a job, you know that it can take weeks for that process to happen, and it is no different here. Certainly, the hiring of extra teachers has been first and foremost at the minds of so many parents as the push to convince Premier Doug Ford to reduce class sizes in elementary schools continues. Really, this is weighing very heavily at the minds of all 72 public school boards across Ontario. If you want to hire more teachers, you need more money. This is something we have been hearing all along from the Toronto District School Board here. I got a chance to speak to Peter Soran. He is the Associate Director of Learning for the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, also a major school board here in Ontario. Here is what he had to say about what they would like to do.
To that end, for our elementary schools, hearing from parents that, a conventional return is worrisome to them. If we were to reduce the class sizes somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 20 students, we would certainly need more than the full amount that the province has provided in terms of the 30 million.
By the way, that 30 million is province-wide. Hamilton itself would need much more than that. And here in Toronto, actually, the figure is if the class sizes in elementary schools were to go down to 15 students, which is what many parents want, we would be talking about $250 million in Toronto alone for the hiring of those extra teachers. So needless to say, all of that has not really started yet because they don't have enough money to start the hiring.
Okay, well then the plan also calls for the hiring of nurses for schools as well. How's that part of the plan going then?
Also, I think not as far along as people would like it to be. I should mention that when Premier Ford and Minister of Education Stephen Lecce announced this plan to hire 500 public health nurses, everybody really welcomed this. This is a great initiative that many people have been hoping for years would happen, certainly now in the pandemic. But who is going to be doing the hiring and how these nurses are going to be paid is another question. I actually asked Premier Ford the question in today's press conference. Here's what he had to say.
We have a call out right now for nurses. We want to make sure we fulfill the 500 positions without draining from the system, and that's so important. Public health has a certain amount of nurses.
But by the way, when I asked that same question of the school boards and various nurses organizations, they seemed very unclear as to who would actually be doing the hiring. So school boards have said, we think individual public health units, but we're not certain yet. I got a chance to speak to Doris Greenspun. She's the CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Here's what she had to say about how she wishes the thing would play along.
Our preference in terms of the hiring is that while some aspects may be centralized, that actually each unit has the final word on the people they bring on board, because it needs to fit the reality of those units. It needs to fit the teams on those units, and it needs to blend with the rest of the programs in public health.
By the way, the plan also calls for the hiring of 900 extra custodians and cleaning staff. We spoke to the union representing them, and they said that while they've seen some jobs being posted, which is a good indication that this is underway, that 900 custodians sounds like a big figure, but actually isn't when you're talking about how many schools they need to work at to make sure that this crucial cleaning and disinfection takes place that everybody wants to happen. So really, we're going to be talking about a very stressful few weeks for everybody involved in the education equation, and I think continuing pressure on Premier Ford, who I should mention today in the press conference seemed, and in recent days, seemed more flexible to either giving more money to this plan or more time. So we will stay focused on that to see what happens. Dwight.
Deanna will have more on this for us tonight on The National. Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you, Dwight.
And for the first time since March, we got a peek into the government's books, and it looks like the province's sky-high budget is surging to record levels. The deficit has now nearly doubled, and the province is almost $40 billion in the red. Paula Morelli breaks it all down for us.
From a health crisis to an economic crisis, the latest figures from the Ontario government paint a bleak picture.
We are in for a difficult economic time. We've always been very frank with Ontarians about that.
In March, the government announced its $17 billion COVID-19 relief fund. The government now says spending for that relief will jump to $30 billion. So where's that money going? The province is spending an additional $4.4 billion on healthcare for things like hospital capacity, COVID-19 prevention in long-term care homes, testing, and more PPE. It's spending an additional $7.3 billion on what it calls people and jobs. That's to support a $4 an hour increase in pandemic pay for frontline workers, and includes cash to help municipalities in transit. So what does this all mean? The deficit in this province is projected to nearly double, from $20.5 billion to $38.5 billion.
While the current level of government spending and deficits are not sustainable over the long run, they are necessary today. Necessary to respond to the health crisis.
Between February and May, there was a decline in 1.2 million jobs. That's higher than any of the declines in past recessions.
There's so many people hurting out there.
Doug Ford campaigned on balancing the books. Asked today whether cuts or tax increases are on the horizon.
I just can't predict the future. Our main goal is to make sure that we help these families and individuals and small business owners try to get back on their feet.
Today, the opposition hammered the government for what wasn't in the COVID-19 spending plan.
And there's no money in this budget as to what the government is going to spend to make sure that kids go back to school safely.
The finance minister said today the health of the economy is closely linked to the health of Ontarians. If there is a second wave of COVID-19 and there are more closures, things could get worse economically. As for how the government plans to get back on track fiscally, it says we'll have to wait until the budget this fall to find out. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
The TTC is getting $404 million from the province as ridership declines due to the pandemic.
That represents a very strong down payment for our transit system, which we know must keep going so that we can have as safe a restart and as effective a restart of the city and its economy as possible.
Tory said the funding will go toward their operational budget for city services, which he says was heading towards a significant deficit. The money comes in partnership with the provincial and federal government under the Safe Restart Agreement. The province announced today that they will be giving $1.6 billion to municipalities as they grapple with financial loss due to COVID-19. Peel Region's Public Health Unit released COVID-19 data based on race and occupation.
Visible minorities made up nearly 4 of 5 cases, despite making up only 2/3 of Peel's population. These numbers mean that those who have fallen sick from COVID-19 have already faced other structural disadvantage.
Residents who identified as South Asian, Black, or Latino are overrepresented compared to their proportion of Peel's population, while those who identified as White, East Asian, Southeast Asian, or Middle Eastern are underrepresented. From the occupational data, healthcare workers are the most impacted by COVID-19, representing 1/3 of the cases, despite making up only 5% of Peel's labor force. Transport and equipment operators and individuals working in manufacturing and utilities are also overrepresented in the data. A Toronto man was killed this morning after a tire flew off of a truck and crashed through his windshield. It happened on the 401 near Markham Road. Greg Ross has the details.
You think of the poor person, the young man in that vehicle.
Bill Holtom works at Toyota's offices that face the 401 near the scene of the accident. He arrived at work today not long after a tire flew from a commercial truck and into the windshield of a minivan, killing 24-year-old Christian Romero Mancilla, believed to be pictured here in these Facebook photos.
We all drive here, so why him, right? Why that guy right in front here? Kind of gives you the chills.
According to the OPP, it happened right around 7:30 this morning.
We had a westbound pickup truck, a large pickup truck, like an F-350, 1-ton, towing a tandem axle utility trailer that was loaded with some styrofoam product. A large vehicle such as that can only stop in certain areas. It has to be a safe place to pull over. So he was found in a safe location.
Police are still investigating what caused the wheel to fly from the trailer.
That is the axle that's missing the wheel. This is axle number 4 on the driver's side.
Hunter tweeted out this video of the trailer involved and pointed to many possible clues.
You can see that there are 2 wheel studs left, those 2, and they don't look like they're in great shape. The wheel fasteners appear to have been loose for a period of time, and that it's worked around the holes in the wheel rim itself to make those holes larger than they ought to be. And that working back and forth has snapped the wheel studs off.
At this point, no charges have been laid, but Hunter says they are likely.
There's a charge specific to losing a wheel from a commercial motor vehicle, and that would be the applicable charge in this scenario.
He says it's always the driver's responsibility to ensure their vehicle is safe. He says even non-commercial vehicles should be inspected regularly. In this case, Hunter says the driver could be facing a fine anywhere from hundreds of dollars to tens of thousands of dollars. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A memorial continues to grow at the spot in Etobicoke where a 3-year-old boy was killed yesterday, struck by an SUV as he was crossing the street with his family.
Oh, it's just horrible. I mean, I feel bad for everyone. The family, the lady who caused or I'm not sure who caused it, but It's a tragedy for everyone. It's just awful.
From what I'm hearing, she did a U-turn, an older lady, and didn't see them. It's sad. It's very sad.
The collision happened yesterday morning just after 11 near the East Mall and Burnhamthorpe Road. The child's father and sister were also hit by the SUV. They were taken to hospital. The driver remained at the scene. No charges have been laid yet. Police are appealing for anyone who witnessed the incident to contact them. And one man is dead after an early morning shooting outside an apartment complex in Scarborough. Alicia Hassan has more from the scene on Danforth Road.
We met Robert Nippard staring at evidence markers where 45-year-old John Wheeler was shot and killed just after 3:30 in the morning.
I still call him my stepdad, but him and my mom were broken up for years now, but he's still the only true man there since I was young, you know?
Wheeler was shot outside of his apartment building here at Danforth and Eglinton on his way to work.
Why? Over what?
That's what Toronto Police Homicide is trying to figure out.
So what I can tell you about Mr. Wheeler is that he is not known to police. He is a hardworking man. Right now, in regards to motive, there's no motive that I can suggest why he was targeted, if he was even targeted. Again, early on in the investigation, and we'll look into that.
Investigators are going door to door in the building, talking to witnesses. Surveillance footage from outside the building, though, does contain a lot of clues. It shows 3 suspects potentially involved.
The male, white, dark clothing, approximately 20 years of age. Second is a male black, approximately 20 age, dark clothing as well. And there was a female driver in the vehicle that left. That vehicle is a dark SUV, and it was last seen headed out towards Danforth Road.
Who they are and where they are now, as well as the motive, remains a mystery. Toronto police are asking that anyone with information gives them a call. Alicia Hassan, CBC News, Toronto.
There they are. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have joined forces to take on Trump in November's election. We'll have that story for you coming up at 6:30. But right now, some good news from Colette on the weather front.
Yes. Dwight, I do have some good news. I have to tell you, yesterday our reporter Trevor Dunn was explaining to me that when he thinks of the dew points, it's the point at which he knows he's got to go and do something. Most of us think of the dew point as when it's in the upper teens or low 20s, that moisture in the air makes us feel kind of sticky and uncomfortable. When it tends to be in the single digits or those low teens, it's a little more comfortable. So our dew points from yesterday, they were up there in that range where it was uncomfortable. And then after that cold front moved through into today, yeah, comfier with these kinds of dew points, all right? So this is what they're looking like right now. And so even when we have temperatures that are like this, it doesn't feel as bad. So these are the temperatures right now, and our humidex values are only in the low 30s, not up there around 40. So that's why I like to look at those dew points, even sometimes if it is what I need to go do something. Our satellite looks like this as well, and this is because high pressure is the dominant force in terms of our weather pattern right now. So that's sinking air, it's very stable, so we get the clear conditions as well, and we're not talking about having to deal with any rain or active weather. In fact, look how broad this is. It's keeping it to the south of us, off to the west of us as well. So we're going to continue with this sort of pattern for a while yet. So tonight, clear skies, 18 degrees, tomorrow 30 degrees, but keeping it fairly comfortable. Gets a little stickier tomorrow. They creep up just a little bit, those dew points. I'll tell you, however, Dwight, it's a few days yet before we have a chance for some rain showers. We'll get into that when I come back a little later in the show.
We will check back with you. Thanks, Colette.
Sounds good.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Some glum faces at the Leafs' end-of-season press conference. We should be used to this by now as players try to explain their shortfalls this year.
There's obviously a bit of a different feeling going on this year, but the emotions are the same, and it hurts just as bad as years past, if not more so.
4 years in a row is obviously pretty frustrating and, a little bit embarrassing as well that,
with the talent we have on this team that we haven't really been able to pull through. But I think all of us believe in each other.
I think certainly the type of group we have, it can be pretty special if we can obviously come together and find our way.
The Leaf season ended Sunday after losing their qualifying series to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Fans had high hopes for the team this year after several changes by management, including a new head coach. That's left a lot of questions about why this team did not measure up.
It has to do with the mindset. It has to do with some personnel issues. But I can tell you that there are no excuses being made here. It's really about finding solutions so that we get over that hump.
For now, the remaining 16 teams continue to battle it out for the Cup. This year's playoffs could extend into October, typically when a new NHL season begins. When we come back, how one woman's personal journey from Lebanon to Canada is coming full circle as she gives back to help her homeland.
What Lebanon is going through right now, it is surreal. It's going to take Lebanon a long time to rebuild. And in my head, I'm thinking, I cannot be sitting in this chair without helping. What do I need to do?
It has been just over a week since a massive explosion rocked Beirut. 171 people were killed, thousands injured. Hundreds of thousands are displaced, and 30 people are still missing. While the search and cleanup continues, support is growing half a world away. Here in Toronto, the Lebanese-Canadian Coalition is trying to raise $2.5 million. One of its leaders is Rola Dagger, the president of Cisco Canada. I sat down with her this week to talk about the movement she wants to help start and her own personal journey from Lebanon to Canada.
I escaped Lebanon 31 years ago. My daughter was 10 months old. And it took Lebanon 30 years to rebuild, brick by brick. And it took them 30 seconds to tear it down. And that's why that 30 seconds is going to turn into a lot of actions. But rest assured, all of Lebanese across the world will rebuild Beirut 100 times over.
We were planning to do this before the tragedy, but now that we've had this tragedy in Lebanon, let's start with that. What was your reaction when you heard what happened in your homeland?
Shocked, heartbroken, devastated, and I froze. I don't think I got out of my chair for 4 hours because the second I heard my sister's voice on WhatsApp crying and saying, "Rola, I can't find my son," it killed me. So it took us about 5 hours to know that our nephew was alive. All my sisters, everybody was just, "Did you hear anything? Did you hear anything? Are you seeing what we're seeing?" And just the blast. It was like watching a movie. We couldn't believe that it was real. I couldn't stop crying, but at the same time, I was absolutely determined to find my nephew and make sure that everyone is safe first. And in my head, I'm thinking, I cannot be sitting in this chair without helping. What do I need to do?
You were able to find your nephew?
We found, yes, we found my nephew after a few hours. He's a volunteer firefighter, and he was supposed to be in the first batch that was released, that all of them died. But luckily, they told them, "We'll call you guys after the second batch of volunteers." So he was on the second one, which, yeah.
It didn't take long for you to jump into action with some other members of your community. What did you start to try to help?
I started making calls. I picked up the phone and I called about 10 Lebanese leaders that I know and 10 Lebanese people, and I said, "We can't be sitting here and just watching the news." I said, we're blessed for being in a country like Canada that is safe, but it's our job and our duty to give back to our community. And I said, we need to start the conversation. And we need to start something, and we need to lobby the government, and we need to go after every single Lebanese person in Canada to start a movement. So that's how we started the Lebanese Canadian Coalition with about 15 members, and I can't tell you how many people have been reaching out. Can we be part of this? Can we be part of this? And we got it up and running in 3 days. 3 days of nonstop calls and meetings, and ensuring that we're making sure that the government is aware of what's happening, and seeing how the government could help the federal government, provincial government, and they stepped up. But we definitely need more support, because what Lebanon is going through right now, it is surreal. It's going to take Lebanon a long time to rebuild. $10 to $15 billion is the initial number.
I don't want you to get into Lebanese politics, but can that country take any more strife? I feel like in my entire lifetime I've been hearing about strife and civil war and trouble in that little place by the sea.
I tell you, I think this one had hit Lebanese people really hard. I don't know what it is, if Lebanon is cursed or something, and I don't like politics, and I never want to get into politics, but it's like a curse. Lebanese people are good people. They have big hearts, they want to give. And then when you see Lebanese people outside of Lebanon and how much they have done and how successful they are, it makes you so proud, but my goodness, there's only 4.5 Lebanese people in Lebanon.
Yeah, 4.5 million.
Exactly, 4.5 million Lebanese people that can't figure it out. But there's 18 million Lebanese people outside of the country. I think we're better outside of the country. We just need to ensure that Lebanese people can't take it anymore. It's what's happening is the corruption in the government that needs to be absolutely taken out and start from the ground up. And you need people that care about people, not people in government that care about their own motive.
What are you asking of the Canadian people who are maybe watching you and listening to you as you try to spearhead this effort to help?
I am begging, not asking. I am begging every single Canadian in Canada. There's almost 39 million Canadians. If every Canadian donates $1, we can make a difference. I'm asking the Lebanese community to also reach out to all the communities across Canada to ensure we're creating awareness. I want people to know that they're not donating to government, and we are not working towards enabling anything through the government. This campaign that we started with the Lebanese Canadian Coalition is focused on people to people, raising money through legitimate organizations like the Red Cross and Humanitarian Coalition, and that's the only way we can secure that people of Lebanon are actually taken care of.
You are becoming known for stepping up to help. You aided with the Black North Initiative. Yeah. You've spoken out about mental health. Is this just you paying it forward, or is this just part of your makeup?
This is who I am. It's in my blood. My father taught me something that I would never forget. Life owes you nothing. Life is an opportunity for us to make the best of it. And I learned everything that I know. I earned it because I worked hard, and the only way I could be blessed is to return it. To return it back to the people in need, to return it back to the community. And it's not your struggle until it's visible to you. Mental health was visible to me through my amazing family that struggled with it. A Black North is close to me because it's people, and people deserve and have the right to be treated like people. Immigration, where I know I was an immigrant and I came here to start from the ground, and that's why I support them. And now with Lebanon, shame on us Lebanese people if we don't return it back. So that's why what you see is what you get, and that's why I'm blessed, right? It's because I want to give everything that I have to people in need, because that's the only way you could be blessed.
Dagger's life journey is as impressive as her commitment to help. Here's a quick look at that part of our conversation that we will bring you in full tomorrow. Your story is fascinating because of where you started and where you now landed. You're born in a small village in Lebanon, and take us from there to this path to Canada, because it was not an easy one.
No, it wasn't easy at all. And in fact, I actually have to pinch myself now. And sometimes I feel, is it real? Is it surreal that I am where I am today? When I got to the role at Cisco, it was like a dream. Our CEO, Chuck Robbins, first met me and heard that I don't have a formal degree. He said, Rola has a master and a doctorate in life.
More of that for you tomorrow, but we have a lot more for you tonight.
This government might not be worthy of our trust anymore.
The Bloc Québécois threatens to take down Justin Trudeau and his government as Conservative leader Andrew Scheer rises in the House of Commons for what could be the final time. We will have the latest from Ottawa next. Plus, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris hit the campaign trail for the first time as the Democratic ticket to take on Trump is finalized. Stay with us. We will be right back. There was talk on Parliament Hill today of triggering an election. It came from the leader of the Bloc Québécois and an MP running for the Conservative Party leadership. Evan Dyer looks at the possibility of bringing down the government.
Today, the Bloc's leader said he's ready to bring down the hammer on the Trudeau government unless the Prime Minister, his Chief of Staff and his Finance Minister all leave their posts.
We are getting to the point where the question becomes, which is worse? Keeping them and this government in place, or creating a temporary distortion in the management of the crisis in going into an election?
Conservative leadership candidate Erin O'Toole was musing today about the same thing.
I think this is a tired and scandal-plagued, ethically challenged government that soon needs to be put out of its misery.
Can somebody on the side tell us why the Prime Minister thinks the rules do not apply to him?
But for all the talk of bringing down the government, can the opposition really do it? And do they really want to?
Well, if every party voted the same way, all of the opposition parties would need to vote against the government to bring them down.
What the government is proposing. But the opposition parties today hardly looked ready to work together.
We did not have formal discussions with any other opposition party. As you know, we have as little discussions as possible with the NDP, which doesn't seem to be very worthy of it.
And as the Bloc disparaged the NDP, the Conservatives bashed the Bloc.
In fact, we're going to be leading the process because the Bloc Québécois can never form national government. They've backed the government at times when they should not have.
The Trudeau government has lost some of the support it picked up during the pandemic, but polls suggest that if last October's election were replayed today, the Conservative Party might likely emerge with fewer seats than it holds now. Only the Bloc may have a real motive to want a new election, and the Bloc alone can't make that happen. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Chelsea, Quebec.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made their first public appearance together this afternoon, kicking off their already historic run for the White House. Harris is the first woman of color to be a VP candidate, and as Lindsay Duncombe reports, her formal introduction as Biden's running mate near his home in Delaware marks a turning point in the Democratic Party's campaign.
Please welcome Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Kamala Harris.
Out of the House and energized. That's what this first appearance is supposed to symbolize. A first look at the team Democrats hope will defeat Donald Trump.
Kamala, as you all know, is smart. She's tough. She's experienced. She's a proven fighter. Kamala knows how to govern. She knows how to make the hard calls. She's ready to do this job on day one. And we're both ready to get to work rebuilding this nation and building it better.
At 55, Kamala Harris is far younger than Biden. Of Indian and Jamaican descent, she represents a racial and generational shift evident in the party, but not its candidate. But Harris's gender and race have also made her a target.
America is crying out for leadership. Yet we have a president who cares more about himself than the people who elected him.
President Donald Trump's re-election campaign was ready for Harris. This attack ad tweeted just after yesterday's announcement.
Kamala Harris ran for president by rushing to the radical left.
For the past several months, Democrats have been happy to let Trump keep the spotlight, especially in light of the coronavirus crisis and the president's sinking polls. That changes now. The Democratic convention begins next week.
More attention means more opportunity to mess up. Joe Biden is a candidate prone to gaffes. Now that he has emerged alongside his running mate, the stakes for the Democrats get higher. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
A train derailment has killed 3 people and injured 6 others in northeastern Scotland. The passenger train came off the tracks just south of Aberdeen. As you can see there, the wreck sent smoke billowing into the air near the village of Stonehaven. At least 3 cars left the tracks and 1 tumbled down an embankment. The cause remains under investigation, but the weather may have been a factor. The area was recently hit by severe storms that brought high winds and triggered flooding. Contract talks have started between Detroit's Big Three automakers and its 20,000 members of Unifor. It all started with a document exchange this morning instead of the usual ceremonial handshake. Because of COVID-19, of course, the impact of the discussions will affect employees at first Fiat Chrysler, Ford and GM for the next 4 years. Existing agreements expire on September 21st. Unifor President Jerry Diaz says he is going to take a hard line on these negotiations despite the economic crisis caused by the pandemic.
So this is going to be about product. It's going to be about stabilizing the footprint. It's going to be about where the industry is heading in the future, but it's about rewarding our members as well for their incredible sacrifices and their contributions to their profitability.
He adds he won't let the pandemic be an excuse for manufacturers going forward as the union tries to secure new contract commitments and job security for plants in Oakville, Brampton, Windsor, and St. Catharines. All of this, especially after the loss of the FCA third shift in Windsor and the end of vehicle assembly at the GM plant in Oshawa. But some say the uncertainty of the times might make things difficult.
You know, there's a lot that's working against Unifor right now. The pandemic obviously makes long-term planning incredibly difficult, and automakers might not be willing to invest as much if they don't know what the market looks like going forward. And there are a lot of doubts about what the market looks like and whether it's pent-up demand right now or whether we have a more sustainable sales pace going forward.
FCA Canada says the company is committed to negotiating a fair agreement. GM Canada says the company is looking for a more flexible agreement with the union. Meanwhile, the VP for Ford says the pandemic has been an unprecedented challenge for the organization and tough decisions have to be made. The mayor and fire chief were on hand to celebrate the progress made so far in the construction of the city's newest fire hall, Station 144 in Downsview Park.
In addition to housing an emergency response crew, this fire station will also become the much-needed home of the Toronto Fire Services Fire Investigations Team. This fire station includes state-of-the-art, purpose-built facilities that will support the unique and challenging work of both our firefighters and our fire investigators. And that includes areas like decontamination facilities and secure fire investigation evidence lockup facilities.
The fire hall is located close to more than 1,000 new homes. Construction started in March just as the pandemic was beginning and is expected to be completed by fall 2021. The pandemic put a pause on their cause, but the youth supporting the climate movement Fridays for the Future are back at it with a new campaign, this time taking aim at the province's COVID-19 recovery plans.
The government seems to be focusing on the short-term effects of just getting the economy up and running again, when in reality we are in a crisis. Normal was a crisis. This is our time for a new normal.
The campaign is called Eyes Open Canada. They are urging the government to repeal Bill 197, saying the bill focuses on bailing out mass corporations to recover the economy. The group is demanding a green and just COVID-19 recovery for all. All right, it is Hump Day, Colette. What do you have for us as we try to get over the hump?
Well, I've got some good news in terms of what we're looking at, Dwight, here with our weather for the next few days. So comfortable conditions in terms of the humidity has gone down from where it was at. So we're not talking about those humidex values near 40. So fairly dry in terms of how it feels, but also fairly dry in terms of we don't have rain in the forecast for a few days. So 3 more days of sunshine here. And then by Sunday, we will have showers moving into the forecast. So the second half of the weekend, okay? That's how it looks right now with the timing. That could move up a little bit. One of the models wants to bring it in a little more quickly. So just be watching that. I'll be keeping a close eye on it in terms of your planning for the weekend. Current temperatures look like this, 28, 29 degrees around the Golden Horseshoe. Our humidex values 31 to 32. So you only add a little bit in terms of when we get that humidity factored in there. High pressure in place, very dominant all around the Great Lakes. So that's holding off the precipitation and keeping keeping us dry with that very stable air. And as we look at what's going on with these long-range models, it keeps things dry well into Friday. This is Friday night, so a couple of days, that's what I mean with all the sunshine here. Then as we're going into Saturday, a little more cloud cover perhaps coming in, still just mixing in there. Late in the day, getting some showers, maybe trying to make their way into southwestern Ontario. I think they'll kind of hold off. Then getting into those model projections, it is coming in into Saturday night, into Sunday, it's looking like. And then Sunday, moving out by Sunday night into Monday, we're clearing back out again. So Sunday, again, looking like the day. Overnight tonight, though, we've got those clear skies. You want to check out the meteor showers? Yes, you have an opportunity again tonight. We've got the great conditions for it. And then tomorrow, here we go with those temperatures. 29 to 34 are highs, but just add a little bit more tomorrow. So putting the humidex at about 33 to 34 in terms of how it will feel. Friday, just a little bit cooler, so highs in the upper 20s. Saturday as well. And then with that system working its way through, we're only talking about mid-20s for the highs on Sunday, Dwight.
Thanks, Colette.
You got it.
Okay, you've heard of social distancing. How about social dancing?
I'd like to promote the message that you can still engage, you can still share joy with one another while social distancing.
Okay, how people are developing safe ways to party when we come back. Cities around the world have seen new spikes in COVID-19 cases, some of them linked to gatherings by young adults. But there are suggestions out there about how to let loose with friends without spreading the virus. Zara Premji has the details.
A party with distance, and the organizer has a name for it.
We like to call it social dancing. We like to promote the message that you can still engage, you can still share joy with one another while social distancing.
From bike rides with music playing down the street to hikes with party lights while keeping distance, Jacques Mardiquet has taken his original form of party planning and energizing a crowd to the same goal but COVID conscious. The self-proclaimed celebration scientist says in the midst of the pandemic, he's realized there's a greater need for face-to-face socializing safely. Even if health officials are saying it's okay to say no to friends when you don't know everyone who's going.
There's never been a time when saying no to going to a party is easier.
Mardiquet says he's keeping numbers below 30 and he's using his influence like health officials have previously asked.
We're creating this positive emotion that actually boosts compliance. So we like to say we're an unofficial task force for promoting socially distant fun.
Fun that some say is needed at a time like this.
When you're at a point where you can't reach anyone, especially physically, it definitely breaks you down.
Keeping morale high at this time is really important.
Health experts won't go as far as explicitly telling people not to attend parties, but they do have some advice.
Avoid shared food and drink and things like that, because that's obviously tricky. Provide opportunities for hand hygiene.
And Mardiquet says those are just more aspects that need to be part of the changing definition of partying.
We, as young people, need to learn how to socialize differently.
Jacques Mardiquet says if it's an outdoor setting, he plans to continue throwing his parties, but with the COVID safety in mind, saying he's going to remain COVID conscious, and he encourages anyone else who plans to host something to do it outdoors, follow the rules, and avoid alcohol. Zara Premji, CBC News, West Vancouver.
So will we be able to party outdoors like they're suggesting? Call us back with a final look at your forecast. We're coming right back. Stay with us. Colin, after that dancing story before the break, I'm talking to the team here, and they said, we want to party like it's 2019, Colin. Remember those good old days?
Yes, I do remember those good old days. I absolutely do. And we could do that tonight. I put a bow on it because what this is right here, this is a gift. High pressure, clear skies. You can party tonight because the Perseid meteor shower still peaking. So still a chance to be seeing 10, 20, even 30 shooting stars an hour tonight. Clear skies. You have the conditions. It's going to be a great night tonight. Low about 18 degrees. So here's your forecast conditions so that you can have a look at this. We're looking at those clear skies. Tomorrow, also a gift with that high pressure because we're going to have mostly sunny conditions. 30 degrees for the high, only a little bit of humidity, so feeling like about 34. And it's a gift that just keeps on giving because we're looking at those nice conditions going on for a few days yet. It's not until we get to about Saturday night into Sunday. That's when we get into that next chance of the system. It's going to be sneaking up here from the south and bringing in that next chance of rain. We'll be needing it by then, that's for sure. And so looking at some showers coming in for the second half of the weekend. And as those come in, it's also going to be bringing that temperature down a little bit. So instead of going from 30s and those high 20s for our daytime highs, we're going to be talking about just some mid 20s as we go into Sunday. And then Monday clears right back out. And there we go again. Upper 20s again.
Looking good. Thank you, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We can't even get close enough to line dance anymore. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We will see you back here tomorrow at 6. Stay safe and have a great night, everybody.